Hello, researchers. You are welcome once again to Literature Review. And we are proceeding now to look at how to organize your literature review. I am still your facilitator, Dr. Mark Kahwa, from Faculty of Education at Mountains of the Moon University. So in this lecture, in this presentation, we are looking at how to organize your literature review. Because as a researcher, depending on what topic you are researching, you'll always have a lot of information. You'll have reviewed articles, you have reviewed conference proceedings, you have reviewed government reports, you have reviewed book chapters, mention it. So you'll have vast information. Now, how do you scientifically organize that information under a literature review section? So this, in this lecture, that is what we are going to put our focus on. Now, we are saying that always begin with some background literature about the broad research topic to set context and introduce the broad field of study. So that is what you will begin with. Normally, that's what you begin with. You have that information that is on the background about your topic. And we are saying that sets a context and introduces you now to the broad field, the broader field of study. Now you can now move on to the recent progress on the study topic. Ideally, separate themes should be discussed in a chronological manner to describe how research in the field has evolved over time and to highlight the progress in the field. So that is what you do. So if you have all this information, now how do you organize it? How do you scientifically organize it so that it is in a proper structure, an easy structure that any author can easily follow without any hindrances or without any difficulty? Now we are saying that when you are organizing your literature, in general, literature reviews are structured in a similar way to a standard essay. And in an essay, you always begin with an introduction. You have an introduction. Then after the introduction, you have the body. After the body, then you have the conclusion. So in the organization of the literature review, more or less, we should follow that kind of simple structure. Now, under that simple structure, you already have the introduction. And under the introduction, of course, you broadly introduce the literature, and then the literature section, and then show the different aspects that will be included in the literature section. So briefly, that is the introduction. Now, once you have given the introduction, we want to see how is the body structured. Now, under the body, we shall look at the three main ways how you can structure your literature. You can structure your literature by using what we call the chronological approach. Now, chronological, this one means that under the literature review, the topics that have been talked about for a long time and have changed over the history. So you organize your work based on when this work was published. Organize it in stages. of how the topic has evolved over time. Now, the first definitions of it, then the major time periods of change, as the researchers talked about the topic, then how it is talked about currently. So you follow that kind of chronology. And we are saying that chronology is given by date. So that means you will begin with you begin, we call that in a descending order. So, for example, if you are looking at COVID-19, you are researching on COVID-19. COVID-19 globally was announced in around official around 2000. I mean 2020. So in March. So if you are now going to arrange your topic using this chronological order, it means you will now start by reviewing literature around 2020, then you come, so you organize that literature, what happened in 2020, then you come 2021, what were the major trends concerning COVID-19 in 2021, then what happened in 2022, and what happened in 2023, now what is currently happening in 2024. Because we hear some, isolated incidents still of COVID-19. They say, no, COVID-19 is still there. So that means you are going to organize your literature following those years. If now, for example, you are looking at a different issue, for example, you are looking at climate change, let me say. You are researching on climate change. So you will still organize it following those dates. For example, maybe in 1980, what were the issues of climate change? When we came to 1990, what were the issues of climate change? 2000, what are the issues of climate change? So like that. So the chronological order of arranging the literature, you follow the dates of how that research progressed, or how that issue has been talked about by different scholars. So here we follow the dates of publication. So we call this chronological. So you can arrange your work following those dates. How did this issue evolve over time? How did it progress? How did it change over time? And what is happening currently? So you arrange your literature following those dates. That is what we call the chronological. The second is what we call the thematic. And for me, this is what I normally use when I'm organizing my literature in the different articles, in the different works that I have published in the past. So here, it means that you arrange literature according to the different themes and investigation. Or you arrange literature according to objectives, according to research questions. And my observation tells me that actually this is the most common method that most researchers use, and especially when it comes to social sciences. So now here what happens, I will just give an example. I will just give an example before we come to the methodological. Okay, for example, here you can see that this research had those different objectives. The first one is to find out the tutors' levels of confidence and self-evaluation of their own ICT competencies. The second one is to establish tutors' frequency of ICT usage during teaching and learning process. And the last one is to find out the obstacles hindering effective use of ICTs in teaching and learning process. So this researcher was looking at the use of ICTs in the process of teaching and learning, and had 3 objectives. So if we are going to organize our literature using the thematic approach, it means that we are going now to review literature according to each objective. So it means that now under the body, I will have the first objective. The first objective looks at the tutors' levels of confidence and self-evaluation of their own ICT competencies. So I will get all the literature under the tutors' levels of confidence, and I will put it under this objective. When I have done enough review under this objective, now we will come to the second objective, which is the tutors' frequency of ICT usage. So I will also review literature. I will get literature, and then I will also put it under this objective. I will go to the third, which is obstacles hindering effective use of ICTs. So I will get all the literature under that objective. I will also put it under this third objective. So, and mind you, when we are doing this, maybe in the forthcoming videos I will talk about it, is that when I'm reviewing this literature and following this thematic approach, and I'm looking at each objective, then I will go back when I'm reviewing, I will look, for example, I will review this literature under different perspectives. I will look at the global perspective, I look at the regional perspective, I look at the national perspective, and then I look at the local perspective. For each of these themes, globally I will look at this problem. For example, what is it being taught about this problem, for example, in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in China? So you can see there I'm talking about it globally. Then I will come and look at it, for example, in South Africa. What are they talking about this? In North America, in West Africa, in Central Africa, in South Africa. So that is the regional. Then the national, I will see now at the level of the country. What are the published works about this aspect in Uganda? What are they saying? Then I will come down to the local. If I'm, for example, I'm doing this and I'm taking a case of Fort Portal City. So how is this problem handled in Fort Portal City? So those are the 4 perspectives we talk about. The global, the regional, the national, and then the local perspective. So when you are reviewing the literature, you review literature looking at those perspectives, and then you'll be putting your problem in the proper context. So that is what we call now the thematic. The second one is the methodological approach. Now, methodological reviews, it reviews and concentrates on research methods rather than research outcomes. So the methodological approach is that now when you are reviewing the literature, you will put literature that has the same methodology together, and a literature that has a different methodology, also you'll also put them together. So here you look at methodologies, because as you are reviewing the literature, there are different methodologies. For example, you can say, maybe this research that is purely qualitative, I will review this literature alone. Research that is quantitative, I will put it alone. Research, for example, that has used quantitative analysis, I will put it alone. Research that has used qualitative analysis, I will also put it alone. So this is what we call the methodological approach of organizing literature. Now, we say that you provide a comparison and contrast of different studies and discuss the controversial aspects, and this will help identify the main gaps that need to be worked upon. discuss the strengths and weaknesses of other studies that have tackled the same problem. This is important for outlining the need and novelty of the research. So majorly, we say that when you are reviewing literature and you are trying to organize it, you will organize it under those three approaches. Either you are using the methodological approach, or you are using the thematic approach, or you are using the chronological approach. But as I've told you, for me normally I prefer what we call the thematic approach. So we can now go for a break. When we return, we shall pick on from here. Thank you for your attention.